Today, we're going to practice for the math section of your PERT test. The best way to use this video is after I read the problem, I would suggest that you pause it and solve the problem yourself. Once you press play, I'll give you the answer, and then I'll show you how to solve the problem. If you get the problem right, you can just simply move on to the next question. But if something wasn't right in your solution, I'll show you exactly how to get the right answer. Let's start with number one. So number one asks us to simply add. So we've got 435 plus 287. So what I want you to do is pause this video, work on that, and then come back and get the answer. The answer for 435 plus 287 is 722. So I'm going to write the answer right here so that you have it. And then I'm going to show you how I got that. So it's 435 plus 287. When you're adding, you want to go from the right and move to the left. So 5 plus 7 is 12. We're going to write the 2 and carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 plus 8 is 12. Write the 2 and carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. And that's our answer of 722. Let's move on to number 2. For number 2, we're going to subtract 3,425 minus 1,391. When you subtract these numbers, you'll get the answer of 2,034. When you subtract, just like addition, you want to move from right to left. 5 minus 1 is 4. When I move on to 2 minus 9, I can't do that because 2 is a smaller number than 9. So I'm going to borrow from the 4, and the 4 becomes a 3. My 2 will then become a 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. And then 3 minus 1 would be 2. And there's your answer of 2,034. Let's multiply now in number 3. Number 3 says 236 times 42. And I just wrote a funny 2, so I'm going to try that again. 236 times 42. Again, you're going to start on the right-hand side. Oh, let me give you the answer first. So for number 3, the answer is 9,912. We're again going to start from the right, and we're going to be multiplying all of the top numbers by the number 2. So 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and 2 times 2 is 4. Since I'm done with the 2, I'm going to move to the next row, and I'm going to put my placeholder of 0 in the 1's place. Then I'm going to continue multiplying using 4. 4 times 6 is 24. We're going to carry a 2 this time. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 8 plus 2 is 9, or I'm sorry, 8. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And once I'm done multiplying, I'm going to add all of these together. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 4 is 11. Carry the 1. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And then 9 plus 0 is still just 9. So that's how we got our answer of 9,912. Number 4 says, find the quotient and remainder of 1,875 and 13. When they say find the quotient, that means that we're going to be dividing. So we're going to divide 1,875 divided by 13. The answer to this problem will be 144 with a remainder of 3. Once you set up your problem as division, we're going to ask ourselves, how many times does the number 13 go into 18? Well, that's 1 time. Above the 8, I'm going to write the number 1, and 1 times 13 is simply 13. I always subtract, which would make that 18 minus 13, which is 5. And then I'm going to bring down the 7, so my 5 becomes a 57. Then I'm going to move on to the next one. 13 times what number is equals or is close to 57, and that's the number 4. Because when I multiply, 13 plus 13 is 26, and then 26 plus 26 would be 52. So 13 times 4 is 52. I'm going to write my 52. Then I'm going to subtract. and bring down that 5. So how many times does 13 go into 55? It's going to be the same number, 4, because 4 times 13 is 52. There's no other numbers to bring down, so that means that it's a remainder of 3. And that's how you would solve number 4. Number 5 is an order of operations question, and the correct answer for number 5 is going to be 26. So for number 5, it's 6 plus 18 divided by 2 times 3 minus 7. This is order of operations, which means we're going to be using PEMDAS. P stands for parentheses, but there are none. E stands for exponents. Again, there are none. And then we're going to do multiplication and division from left to right. So the first time I see multiplication or division is 18 divided by 2, which is 9. The rest of my equation, or the rest of my expression, stays the same. 6 plus 9 times 3 minus 7. So all I did was 18 divided by 2. I still have multiplication and division to do. So I see 9 times 3, which is 27. That means those are done. And I have 6 plus 27 minus 7. I'm going to go on to addition and subtraction left to right. So 6 plus 27 is 33. And then when I subtract 7, I get the answer of 26. Number 6 just asks us to simplify. So the correct answer for this is 24. The reason this is the right answer is because when we multiply, we have 6 times 4, which is 24. But also because you have two negatives, negative 6 times negative 4 would also be a positive 24, because a negative times a negative is a positive. 27 looks like a whole lot of addition and subtraction. So for number 7, the correct answer is negative 5. My problem says negative 3 minus negative 5 plus negative 7. Before I start adding and subtracting, I'm going to clean up my expression. There's just a lot going on there, and I think that I can write this in simpler terms. The negative 3 is fine, but when you have a negative negative, that 5, or a minus negative, that 5 becomes positive. So now it becomes plus 5. Then as I move to the right, I have plus negative 7, and that can get really confusing if you have more than one sign. So instead of saying plus a negative, I'm just going to make that minus 7. From here, I'm just going to move left to right. Negative 3 plus 5 is 2, and then 2 minus 7 would give me negative 5. Number 8 also asks us to simplify, and again, we're going to be using PEMDAS. For number 8, the correct answer is going to be the number 7. Our problem is in parentheses 2 minus 5 squared minus 10 divided by 5. So I'm going to start with P, which is parentheses. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Everything else stays exactly the same. Next, I'll move on to exponents. Negative 3 squared is 9. So then I have 9 minus 10 divided by 5. I don't have any multiplication, but I have division. So I'm going to do 9, and then negative 10 divided by 5 is negative 2, and 9 minus 2 is 7. This step is typically where students make their mistake, because you see subtraction and division and you just work left to right. Make sure that you divide first and then you're going to subtract. Let's do number 9. For number 9, again, we're going to be simplifying. So for number 9, the correct answer is going to be negative 5x plus 2. Let's see how we get that. So number 9 says negative 2 in parentheses 3x minus 4 minus in parentheses 6 minus x. The first thing I'm going to do is I notice that I have parentheses, but there's nothing I can actually do inside the parentheses. That's because we have variables. So instead, I'm going to distribute. I'm going to share this negative 2 with everything in this set of parentheses, and then I'm going to distribute this negative with the second group in parentheses. Remember, when we distribute, we multiply, and we only share inside the parentheses. You're not going to share with everything in the expression. So -2 times 3x, -2 times 3 is -6, and the x just tags along. -2 times -4 is going to be a +8, so that group is done. Now I'm going to distribute my negative, which ultimately just flips our signs. So instead of having a +6, now we have a -6. Instead of having a negative x, we have a positive x. From here, we're going to continue moving through our order of operations. The only multiplication I see is 6 times x, which we can't simplify. So we'll move on to addition and subtraction, but because we have a mixture of variables and just numbers, we're going to be combining like terms. I see an x term here with -6x, and then an x over here. Remember that -6x will be added with 1x. There's a 1 in front of that x, even though we don't see it. When you combine like terms, the x will stay the same. The -5 plus 1 or -6 plus 1 would be -5. So that's going to be the first part of our answer. Then we're going to go to the rest of our expression, and we have 8 minus 6. When we do 8 minus 6, we get 2, which is a +2. So we'll add +2 to our answer. For number 10, we have the equation 3x minus 5 equals x minus 1. So the correct answer for that one is going to be x equals 2. Let's solve it to see how we got that. So 3x minus 5 equals x minus 1. Our goal is going to be to get the x values on one side and the numbers on the other side using inverse operations, meaning using the opposite. Keep in mind, it doesn't matter what side we bring the x's to and what side we bring the numbers to. So the choice is totally yours. I like to draw a line down the middle because that means that what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my variables on the left side and my numbers on the right side. So I already have the 3x on the left, but I need to bring this positive 1x over to the left side too. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. On the right side, it cancels, leaving me with just -1. On the left side, 3x minus x would be 2x, and then the -5 stays the same. So my x's are on the left. The next thing I need to do is bring that -5 over to the right-hand side. Again, inverse operations. -5, the opposite would be +5. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. The 5s will cancel, and I have 2x on the left. On the right-hand side, I'll have -1 plus 5 is 4. And now it says 2x equals 4. My last step is to get the x by itself. And because 2 and x are being multiplied, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so that leaves me with x. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and that is my answer. Remember, when you're solving for x2, you can always plug your answer back in to check. So if I were to do that, 3 times 2 minus 5 should be the same as 2 minus 1. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 minus 5 is 1. 2 minus 1 is simply 1, and because they are equal, your answer is right. So let's move on to number 11 now. Number 11 says 0.2 over 5 equals 1.2 over x. We've got a proportion here. So the correct answer is x equals 30. And let's see how we would solve this one. So 0.2 over 5 equals 1.2 over x. Oh, that should be an x. To solve this, I'm going to use my cross multiplying. Some people know this as the butterfly. So I'm going to multiply my top left with my bottom right. And then I'm going to multiply my bottom left with my top right. What this will look like is when I do 0.2 times x, I simply get 0.2x. When I go to multiply 5 and 1.2, 5 times 1.2 would be 6. I'm going to solve this just like I would any other problem where I'm trying to get x by itself. All I have is one step. I'm going to divide both sides by 0.2. and I'll get x equals 30. For number 12, we're working with some fractions. For number 12, the correct answer is going to be -17 over 24. In order to solve this, let me write down my fractions first. -5 over 6 plus 1 over 8. Whenever I have a negative fraction, I just naturally bump that negative up to the top number. You only want to make one of your numbers negative. So in -5 over 6, I made the 5 negative, but the 6 stays positive. If you put a negative with the 6 as well, that's a double negative, -5 over -6, and that would become positive, which is not the fraction we're using. In order for me to be able to add these together, I'm going to need them to have the same denominator. So I'm going to think of multiples of 6. So I've got 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. I think that should be enough. I can always add more if I need to. Then I've got 8, 16, 24, and I'm going to stop right there because I found one that they have in common, which is 24. So that means on the bottom of both of my fractions, it's going to be out of 24. Well, in order to get 24 on the bottom of my first fraction, I would have done 6 times 4, which means if I multiply the bottom by 4, I also need to multiply the top by 4. So I'm going to do -5 times 4, which is -20. Over here, I did 8 times 3 to get 24. So I'm also going to have to do 1 times 3 is 24, which is just 3. I'm going to add my numerators together. So -20 plus 3, that means you owe $20, but you pay back $3. Now you only owe $17. And my denominator stays exactly the same. Anytime you have an answer specifically in fraction form, you want to make sure it's in its most simplest terms and it's reduced as much as possible. 17 is a prime number, so the only numbers that I would be able to divide 17 up by are 1 and 17. Dividing by 1 won't actually change our numbers. It's not going to make it any more reduced. And 24 is not divisible by 17. So this would be our final answer, -17 over 24. Moving on to number 13. In number 13, they want us to multiply. So we're going to be multiplying these two fractions together. When you are done multiplying number 13, you should have the answer 5x over 24. When you multiply fractions, you simply multiply straight across. You are not doing that butterfly or cross multiplying technique that we did in number 11. You only cross multiply when there's an equal sign. Multiplying fractions is actually probably one of the easiest things to do with fractions because, like I said, you just simply go straight across. So we're going to do 3x times 10. Well, 3 times 10 is 30, and the x tags along. And then 8 times 18, that's difficult for me to do in my head. So I'm going to do 8 times 8 is 64, carry my 6. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 6 would be 14. So I have an answer of 30x over 144, but I know for a fact that this can be reduced. The reason I know for a fact is because they're both even numbers. So I can definitely divide both numbers by 2. When it comes to trying to figure out how to reduce your fraction, yes, it is really helpful to find the biggest number they both divide by, because then you'll get to your answer faster. But if you're stuck, start with any number you can think of. When I do 30x over 144 and divide them both by 2, that's going to give me an answer of 15x on top and 72 on the bottom. Well, I know that I have to use numbers that are factors of 15, which would be 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Immediately, I'm going to cross out 1 because dividing numbers by 1 doesn't make them any smaller. I'm also going to cross off 5 because I know for a fact that if I'm dividing a number by 5, it will only work if there's the ones place has a 0 or a 5. So I'm going to try 3 and 15. 72 divided by 15 is going to give me a decimal, which I don't want, but 72 divided by 3 is going to give me the answer of 24. So I'm going to do 15 over 72 divided by 3, which would give me 5 over 24x. Remember, you can divide and reduce your fractions a couple of times, or maybe you would have noticed when you first started with the number 30 that 6 is a factor of 30, and you can also divide 144 divided by 6. Either way, you're going to get to your reduced fraction of 5x over 24. Number 14. In number 14, they want us to subtract and write the answer as a simplified mixed number. So for 14, the correct answer is going to be 3 1/3. To solve this, the first thing I'm going to do, let me just write down, it's 6 minus 2 2/3. The first thing I'm going to do is make both of them into improper fractions. So what I have for the number 6 is just 6 over 1. And then for my mixed number, I'm going to multiply 2 times 3 is 6. And then let me actually write that out so you can see. So it's 2 2/3. I'm going to multiply my 2 times the denominator, which would give me 6. And then I'm going to add my numerator, which gives me 8. So this fraction becomes 8/3. In order to add and subtract fractions, I need them to have the same denominator. So because one of my fractions has a denominator of 3 and the other one is 1, I'm going to multiply my top fraction by 3 over 3. 6 times 3 is 18, and 1 times 3 is 3. Then I'll subtract 8 over 3. Because they have the same denominator, I'm going to keep that as 3, and I'll do 18 minus 8 is 10. Now what I'm going to have to do is write it as a mixed number. So I'm going to think about how many times, and basically it's 10 divided by 3. Well, if you have the number 10, how many times does 3 go into 10? It would go 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. So it's going to leave you a remainder of 1. But instead of writing remainder of 1, we're going to write 1 over what we were dividing by, which is 3. So the correct answer is 3 1/3. In 15, it says a coat that normally sells for $250 is on sale for 30% off. Find the discount. So for number 15, the discount is going to be $75. I'll get that by doing 0.30 because that's 30% as a decimal. And I'm going to multiply that times $250. I'm asking what number is 30% of 250. 30% of always means multiply. So whenever you see or hear the word of, that means multiply. So 30% of 250. You can type that into your calculator. If you had to multiply this out, you'll put your 250 on top and your 0.30 on the bottom. Because you have zeros all the way at the end, I'm going to write 2 zeros at the bottom and cross them out up here, and then continue multiplying. 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. I have 2 numbers to the right, so I'm going to put 2 numbers to the right of my answer, and that's an answer of 75. So the correct answer would be $75. For number 16, using a rectangle with a length of 6 feet and a width of 2, we're going to find the perimeter and the area. So the perimeter, the correct answer is 16 feet. And for your area, the correct answer is 12 feet squared. We get that by first drawing a rectangle. And my pen just stopped working, so let's try that again. It tells me that the length is 6 and the width is 2. When we're doing perimeter, we're adding up all the sides. So this would also have a length of 2, and this would also have a width of, or a length of 6 and a width of 2. So perimeter means add all the sides. So when I go to find the perimeter, so we're going to add sides. I'm going to do 6 plus 2 plus 6 plus 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. 6 plus 2 is 8, and 8 plus 8 equals 16. Perimeter is simply a measure around, so that's why we're just going to use the label of feet. When we go to do the area, we're going to multiply the length times the width. So area equals length times width. So our area is going to be 6 times 2, which is 12. And anytime you're writing area, you want to put that label as squared. So since it's feet, it's going to be squared. For number 17, this is an inequality, and they want us to use less than, greater than, or equal to. So looking at these two numbers, we would know that the correct symbol to use would be greater than. The alligator mouth is going to open up to the -2 because that's the bigger number. The reason behind this, again, is because -2 and -6, even though they're both negative numbers, you want the number that's closest to 0. That's going to be the bigger number. The number closest to 0 means that you owe less money. So the less money you owe, the better off it is, right? And so because -2 is our bigger number, we're going to put greater than. Again, that's our alligator mouth. That's opening to the bigger number. If it was less than, and we had to use that symbol, notice the less than actually makes the letter L for less than. The correct answer for 17, though, is greater than. Number 18, they want us to simply convert these percentages to decimals. When you convert, you're just moving the decimal point. So the correct answer is 0.68 and 0.03. I know this because in these numbers, the decimal point is right here next to the 8 and right here next to the 3. I'm going to move my decimal point 3 spaces to the left, or 2 spaces to the left, and I'll get 0.68. I'm going to move it 2 spaces to the left for the 3, 1, 2, but notice that I have an empty slot. I always think of eggshells or egg cartons when this happens, and I would always say put an egg in it. So you have to put a 0 in that to make it 0.03. Once you make it decimal form, it's no longer a percentage, so you would just leave it as a decimal, no percent sign. Number 19 asks you to round, so we have the number 23.1654, and we're rounding to the nearest tenth. That means that it's that number 1 is in the tenths place. So we're going to look at the number 6. The 6 is going to tell the 1 to go up. So this becomes the number 23.2. When you round, the rest of the decimal places become zeros. So you can leave this as 23.2000 or simply 23.2. The number -1.6735 to the nearest hundredth, that means the 3 is going to tell the 7 what to do. And in this case, it's telling it to stay a 7. So it's going to remain -1.67, and the rest of the numbers become zeros, or you can leave it as -1.67. The last problem says, translate a number subtracted from 6. Anytime you see the words a number, it's talking about a variable. I tend to use the letter X, but you can use any letter that you want. And when it says subtracted from 6, that means that we're starting with the number 6 and then we're subtracting the X. If it's confusing to you, take out a number and replace it with an actual number. Let's say that we said the number 7. 7 subtracted from 6 would look like 6 minus 7. Or maybe the number 2. 2 subtracted from 6 would be 6 minus 2, and so on. So the correct answer is 6 minus X. I hope that going through this review was helpful, and make sure you reach out if you have any questions at all. Good luck.